let's just ground. Just create a brand new grounding cord and start to settle in. And you can use that grounding cord to just release any pictures that have gotten lit up through our discussion as you take a step up in your awareness of what you want to be flowing through the mind and what really is not useful to you. And you just use your tools to let things go. Let that light start to shine out. And I'm going to see where we're headed here in our remaining time together tonight. And you can let your earth and cosmic energy run lightly if you like, and turn down the lower chakras to 10, 10, 70 if you're a spirit in a female body, 10, 10, 50 if you are spirit in a male body. And tuck your aura into that grounding and start to let that light flow through your space. Okay, so I'm going to have you begin to look at the planet. Just put a mental image picture out on your screen for planet Earth. And for the entire planetary entity, so in the esoteric parlance, that's referred to as Sanat Kumara, sort of the planetary entity, the planetary cosmic being. So last session we talked about space as entity, and when you let go of the need to focus on a body and then a gap, or what we call space, or a sort of nothing, and then another body. When you let go of that, you move into the awareness of this ocean or this interconnected field of light, and you start to move into space as entity, letting it fill and be completely full of vibrant life and light. Then you can look at different concentric ring pass knots. So as a personality, for instance, you might think of yourself as, you know, like a 25-watt light bulb, you know, and don't focus on the light bulb, focus on, you know, that bulb will radiate out. It has a certain light quotient, and in a room it will illuminate to a certain, say, shall we say, distance. And so that's what we mean when we are talking about a ring pass knot, that illuminative quality of the personality has a sort of a radiant field. And there's not really an edge there. If you notice, if you're thinking about a light shining in, say, a huge warehouse, you might imagine that if you were illuminating a 25-watt bulb, there would be this halo of light, but then there would still be recesses, shall we say, in your warehouse that were still in shadow. So that's what we're talking about when we refer to a ring pass knot. It's not a hard edge. And then you might think of the soul, say, as, you know, 50-watt light bulb. You start to get the notion of what we're talking about, the radiant field. You see the extension of that light is broader in all directions, and so as you move, you know, into that soul light, that light quotient increases. What you can see, what you can know, and how you are seen, right? So that sixth chakra, that sixth gateway, has to do with how you see. And that seventh gateway is often affiliated with, you know, how you are seen, how much light you let shine out, right? So then you might imagine that if you take all of these human beings, all of these 25-watt radiant fields, and you add all of the soul radiant fields and so on and so forth, you start to get a notion of what we're trying to indicate to you You can always focus your attention down to a point of view. So Janet spoke about this in her book. She was talking about a point of view, and you can narrow your point of view. And the analogy she gave was when you are a bird and you are flying over the earth, your point of view is very, very broad. You know that a bird can see from one end of the valley to the next. Or more that mountaintop point of view, but the detail, say, of a blade of grass is quite obscure, right? And as that bird begins to descend or spiral down, um, the radiant field becomes more focused, right? It's less and less extensive, but it's also more and more detailed on the form level, right? And the bird lands, and it can look at a single blade of grass quite clearly. So what we're saying is you can always think of the point of view as like a lens in a camera, and you can become quite microscopic, or you can be very macroscopic. I mean, so we are inviting you now to move out of microscopic and more into these larger radiant combined radiant field. As you move into soul, as you move into soul group, as you move into the hierarchy, of souls, which includes all the soul groups, and then you move out into the cosmic entity that is in souling this planetary agreement. And notice that this includes the energy of the earth, the minerals, the energy of the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the human kingdom, and what we call the superhuman kingdom, this level of beingness that is not focused on physical incarnation anymore, but is still here, part of the planetary agreement, working basically, shall we say, for the department of the Holy Spirit, shall we say, working with all of us to allow these smaller radiant fields to awaken to their, to increase their light quotient, and to move out of a fixation on microscopic point of view, small point of view, um, and to be able to change the internal dialogue around identity so that that expansion can take place without fear, without a sense of being lost or ceasing to exist. And Jesus, of course, talks about this quite a bit in the Course of Miracles, of this fear of God, this fear of love. Because the microscopic point of view intuitively knows that those expansions clearly move the identity out of such a small definition. Of course, then you have to abdicate um, the desire to be in your egoic framework. So moving out now and looking at this planetary radiant field, this station of light that we call the Earth. See if you can allow us to work with you, you to work with us. See if you can move into the place of merger where you are with us, we are with you, softening again this need to be so microscopic, and start to move into an awareness, if you will, of your beingness, your isness here, this creative place where we are endeavoring to fulfill the plan of God, that salvation plan, to dissolve the illusion, the Maya, the glamour. Mm-hmm. And see, just become very willing to let yourself increase that light quotient, your awareness. Uh, if you recall, many times in previous classes, you have invoked Archangel Metatron to help you increase that light quotient by 12% every time you work with him, right? So just know that we are with you, and that these increases are all part of a well organized plan. That is not about precipitating chaos, but it's about precipitating unification. So it's only ego that is afraid of these expansions, but certainly not your isness, your life essence, your true being. So begin to forgive. Uh, Begin to forgive, and you know what you need to forgive. We don't need to articulate it. Yes, just begin to forgive the untrue, the ugly, the hateful. And you don't even really need to name these things because ultimately, of course, you do discover they are nothing. But we will begin. Begin to forgive. You know exactly what you, at that microscopic level, need to forgive. You absolutely know. And expand. And then begin to forgive all of your brothers, all of those other radiant fields, all of those other light bulbs. Begin to forgive because ultimately you only see your brother this way if you choose to be um, in a state of separation, holding your brother in that same state. So forgive yourself and forgive your brother for his illusions because they mean nothing, they are nothing. And be very specific. You know who you need to forgive, and also very general forgiveness of all um, illusion, past, present, and future, or how have you have it recorded in your records, right? So be very specific. You know who you need to forgive right now, and also very general. And now, particularly ask for help from your Holy Spirit to bring into your awareness that which you can forgive right now, that you are working very hard not to notice, not to remember, to remain unconscious to. And you again can do this very playfully in the way that Janet likes to teach it, which is to color, use a rose as symbol, but you have to have enough recognition to mean it, to really to be using your will to liberate your mind from whatever this is that requires your forgiveness right now, that you have been steadfastly looking away from, or keeping in denial. And be very playful because ultimately you will again realize it is no thing. But for now, and now we ask you to start to relinquish fear. Allow yourself from this expanded state, from this larger light, to go after all the places that the personality hoards fear. It wants to be afraid. It needs to be afraid in order to make that microscopic valence, in order to make a wall, in order to make you so small. It must be afraid. It can be afraid of your president. It can be afraid of your nation's growth period. It can be afraid of, well, whatever it wants to be afraid of, right? Anything you're afraid of, my dears, you want to be afraid. Always. You must know this. You must remember this. Because there is no such thing as fear, and there's nothing to be afraid of. So if you are afraid, you are wanting to be afraid. And you can laugh at that. It's just a habit, an error. And then whoop, you can say, oh my gosh, that you're right. That was just a habit. That was an error. Oh my gosh, how funny. Notice if you are resistant to letting go of the things that you are afraid of, and you can laugh at that. You can be quite amused. Yes, let this ability to trust replace that fear, my dears. There is nothing that can harm you. Our beloved sister uh, said to you all many centuries ago, let nothing disturb thee, let nothing affright thee. You knew her as Saint Teresa of Avila. Imagine if you are willing that you are in a massive river of life and light and love, and you can simply bob along and know that all is good. You can actually enjoy the river of life. You can actually go into an effortless, creative, enthusiastic enjoyment and allow yourself to bubble along, having fun, rolling along this river of life, trusting that you are part of something so beautiful, uh, and gracious and unlimited and eternal. Let nothing disturb thee, let nothing affright thee. And just allow this healing to wash through you. And set your intention right now. Set your intention from this place. Connect the macroscopic and the microscopic and make your intention for a deep remembrance, a deep blessing, especially along these beautiful lines of amusement and appreciation and gratitude and trust. And make your intention for what you will bring with you into having this healing. So use that tool that Janet likes to teach you, that having this gauge. Start to come back now into the center of your head. But know that as you come into the center of your head, that radiant field that you are part of, this spark of light here in the center of your head, it is in the entire radiant ring past, not is in the entire field, you see, but you are just focusing, paying attention for the moment, coming into the center of light, into that center spark, and create a mental image picture of having this gauge, gas gauge if you like, or barometer, thermometer, I don't care, and put it all the way up to 100%. I have this healing. I give myself this healing. I allow my personality to incorporate and synthesize this healing with grace. And you just boop, let it come up to 100%, and then poof, let that picture go off to manifest. Just poof, blow it up. You created it. We're going to reach up and grab that big old sun and fill up. And then all that matter that you work with, it is under the authority of the light. I am the light of God in action in me now. I am the love of God in action in me now. I am the power of God in action in me now. I am the presence of God in action in me now. But let that I not be the microscopic I, full of illusion, but the I given to you, the I am that I am, given to you by God. And when you're ready, you can take one more big old sun, fill up, and come out of trance.
Might I ask who was communicating?
I was just asking that, they just work with me as a collective now because they're not so interested in giving me personality valences. In the beginning, it was more important that I know, but they're less and less concerned with particular assignment. But it felt very much like he was forward. Who did you feel like you were communicating with?
Well, Samat Kumar a little bit, because you
Oh,
mentioned him in the beginning, so that
yes,
may
and
have
there,
been part of it.
yes, thank you. That's a good hello. That actually is more, as much as he can speak directly to us, by the way, which he can now, because of the growth on the planet. There are enough light workers on the planet now that the will of God, so he is the embodiment of the will of God, and which is through which the plan flows, and the hierarchy is the love of God. Okay, that which triangulates it, it brings it into that loving state, and then humanity is that, you know, active, intelligent um, aspect, right? And you know, there's this triangulation, and because there's enough of us now on the planet, making anchoring the light on, um, this is the first time in human consciousness in this last century where Sanat Kumara has been able to directly run, which is why we have the current growth period. That's why it's global, and that's why it is so disruptive, but also ultimately healing. And it's because where the light comes in, that which cannot stand it breaks up. So you can rest assured that this global growth period, um, it only looks terrible to the microscopic version that is very addicted, you know, to its version of reality. But really, um, it's a very catalytic. So you'll see in your own personality, you will see that where you get polarized, you're being polarized by this energy, so that it be more apparent to you about what I want, what I don't want, what is truth and what is not truth, what is loving, what is chaotic. So again, for those of you who have prepared yourself for this time, you're quite able to do it, do the work, and to contribute to the healing. For those who haven't quite been ready, you know, then we want to extend that radiant field to incorporate them, to embrace them, because it's just an illusion. Of course, ultimately, we are all doing this together, right? But on the personality level, you will see, for instance, your daughter, you know, you see this massive polarization going on. You know, she became very, very polarized over on a particular idea, and skewed further and further, and just been coming along for a while, you see. But don't worry, because this is necessary for the ultimate disillusion, shall we say, the breaking of the cocoon, right? Yes. So that's an example of, within the microcosm, you see this polarization going on, and things that we have just adapted, that you have just adapted to, you've put up with. Now it's, you know, it's really becoming quite forward and uncomfortable, so that new choices will be catalyzed. All right, and then of course, then when you look out in larger groups, you see groups squaring off, polarizing. You know, you can look at that through your political system. You can look at that through your cultures and your races, right? You can see these polarizing effects going on. But you have to understand that it's in a way shining a spotlight on how uh, how ill the consciousness has been. For instance, the American psyche has been ill for a very long time, quite ill, but it, you know, not really looked at. Now it's forward, it's quite apparent. So you can, if you're down in the microcosmic point of view, be polarized by it, you can be offended by it, you can be caught up in the us's and them's of it, Or you can come up and say, oh, this is the light shining on that which is chaotic, but the light itself is unified in where we don't focus attention, and then you pull it through the microcosmic. What do I do today? What do I do today on a microcosmic level? What do I say? What do I do, right? And again, sometimes it's just to go into deep meditation or to be thoughtful throughout the day. Other times you may be called to speak. Shannon's talked about this before. So you see this going on because Sanakamara is now able to bring the will directly onto the planet. All right, we ran you a little bit over. I have to kick them out. They'll keep talking. So thank you.